Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Two Young Pastors podcast. My name is Elijah, and always I am joined by the great Pastor Jajuan Sanders. We're two young pastors, and we talk about the Christian lifestyle and what it looks like being a Christian young adult. This episode, we're talking about church and politics. If you are watching along, listening along, as I think most people do, we are gonna dive right into it. We're talking about a lot. If you have not been tapped in, uh, you probably have not seen pretty much a lot of what is going on between church and politics.
Yeah,
It's always been pretty much talked about, but current events, just to give context to everyone, right? A I think the most famous um conservative young adult influencer, I would say, was assassinated, shot while he was on a college campus, Charlie Kirk, and that sparked just this online debate, not only over his death, man, but over the responses to his death. Right? You could
yes.
see a lot of people, and I think I would be right in saying that a lot of people were more offended by the posts on social media than by his actual death. If I'm being honest, like the way that people were posting and responding, even at Capitol Hill, right, in our young adult chat, there was a spark that happened, and a lot of people are feeling a lot of things that brought to the surface a lot of the under tension and the underground tension that's been happening, man. So I want to just frame this question because a lot of people are probably wondering, they're discouraged on one side, or I actually I'm gonna take that back. I think every side is discouraged because if you
Mm,
put it in context, right?
that's very
If you
empathetic of you.
right, like one side that is more right leaning, right? They're like devastated because they lost a influential
A
figure,
hero. Yeah.
a hero. And then on the left side, they're sad and they're devastated seeing the responses to that from their church leaders, right?
Yeah.
So, especially if you're within a evangelical, more conservative leaning dem- denomination, you would kind of see, I think, both sides being hurt right now. And one of the questions that popped up, if you were Christian, man, and you listened to church or you tuned into church this past Saturday or Sunday, you would either hear a church talking about it or a
Yeah.
church not talking about it, right? And a lot of individuals were tuning into church to see what was happening and what would go on.
Yeah.
But maybe we can kind of frame this conversation this way to kind of uh, uh, give us kind of a jumping off point in this episode, man. Should the church, man, because we're both young leaders, we're both pastors. Should the church at some level talk about politics? So, not just engaging in it, but should church talk about politics, either in their small group meetings, in sermons, in Bible studies? Sh- should the church talk about politics, man? What do you think?
Yeah. And, I think before we can even really have this conversation, I think it should be said, one, our condolences go out to the Kirk family.
Mhm.
Um, One, his nuclear family, his wife, and his children. I don't know how many children he has, but I know that he has children. And so our condolences go out to you. Our prayers go out to his family and his extended family, because he's young, 2 years older than me, 3 years older than you, bro.
Man, I did not know how
I,
young he was, man.
yeah, 31, would have been 32 this year.
Wow.
And so his parents, indeed, they lost a son.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if he had siblings, but they lost a brother, and so um, certainly. our heart goes out to the family, especially because no matter what, no matter if you agree with him or not, um, or if you support him or not, no matter what, we are all God's children.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and all life is precious, even to God, right? And so, if life is precious to God, hey, life has to be precious to us.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, no one should be murdered. No one should be murdered in that way. And I saw the video, and I said, "Yeesh." And so, I just want to before we,
Yeah.
I don't, I think we can't acknowledge the fact that this murder took place, um, and not at least extend that courtesy of blessing and praying for his family.
Mhm.
Um, and
Absolutely.
so I think to your question, uh, should the church talk politics? Um, Simple answer is yes. Anything that believers um, have the ability to interact with in their lives should be something that the church addresses.
Mhm.
So everything that a believer addresses or will experience and encounter in their life, it must be something that, like the church, needs to speak on, or it needs at least have conversations about, because we need to know as Christians, how do we interact with these things. And so I think that it's, for me, it's a simple yes. But what about you, bro? What are your thoughts on this situation?
Absolutely, man. I don't think the Bible calls us to fence out any part of our life, and
Yeah,
government, politics is a part of our life. And I think the underlying tone to that question really came out of individuals feeling offended about certain types of politics and certain values, where the Bible pretty much does speak out on a lot of these issues and gives us guidelines, right?
yeah,
And I love the way that you answer that question with giving that context, man. Because here's the thing that is happening a lot online right now is that
yeah.
it's happening void of all the values that the Bible is talking about. So even though,
Mhm.
right, you might have disagreed with someone and you currently do disagree with with their current stances and values, I think the reason that a lot of churches, especially in America, choose not to engage or talk about politics at church in any form is because they can't separate their political identity from their spiritual identity. And what really we're saying is, hey, my political identity has to live absent of my spiritual identity if we're not engaging at them at the same time. So if we're not at church talking about a part of our lives, we're really essentially saying, "Hey, that part of my life, I don't want my spiritual community to speak into," which is not biblical
Mm,
at all.
mm.
And you gave a great example, bro, right now about why. A lot of us, a, a lot of people disagreed with Charlie so
Yeah,
much that they were really offended, right, by this idea of acknowledging his death as something that we can all just say, "Hey, we don't have to celebrate the death," right? He's a human being that died regardless of what he stood for in his politics, right? We can at least acknowledge that a human being died and he was made in the image of God, right? For me, as I was kind of absorbing, I didn't post anything. As I was absorbing that, right? Seeing people on one side being offended, and there's layers to that as well, right? About why they were offended.
yeah,
There were definitely some individuals that were just offended because people acknowledging his death and being sad over it. But then there were others that 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 looked at it, right, and did not engage in the conversation on a spiritual layer at all. It was completely absent in their
yep,
response.
yeah,
Um, and that's one of the byproducts of not talking about politics in church, which is sad because if we're in the arena, man, right, talking about our spiritual stuff,
yeah,
in line with our political values, right? The spiritual should impact everything else in our life. But because
yeah,
it's so absent, man, we have church leaders, we have influencers, we have a lot of people carrying the badge of Christianity, but it's
Yep.
absent of it affecting what they believe and they think, man. So on top of that, bro, what do you think is some of the tensions between believers in the role as Christians and then their responsibility kind of towards politics and engaging in it?
Well, here's the thing. I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room
Mhm,
for many believers. And let's say if we're talking about this particular topic as a launching point, his murder. It's interesting because you earlier in the episode you said assassination,
mhm,
right? And I remember I had a conversation with a person uh, who was bothered by the fact that individuals said that he was assassinated, right?
mm,
Um, and I was like, huh. And so there are some individuals who would say that he was assassinated, other
mhm.
individuals who would not want to give him that, I guess, that credit.
I'm curious,
And
yeah.
I think it's based on your background. It's based on your background,
Mm,
right? I think that typically what you'll see coming from black perspective here, you'll find more white people who are right leaning,
mhm,
right? You'll find more black people who are middle to left leaning,
mhm,
right? Um, and it's because of the fact that in our country, we recognize that we are not as black people always taken into account. At times, our country has profited uh,
mm,
off of our pain, profited off of our decline, even though the country has been willing to utilize our bodies for
mm,
its ascension.
mm,
And for instance, if you may be questioning, what do you mean profiting off of black people, right? Um, there's a disproportionate amount of black people who are imprisoned versus any other race in America, right? It doesn't make sense how many prisons are filled with black people, black men especially. Yet we make up less than 30. I
yeah, I
think
think
we
like
make up
20% right
between,
now.
like, we
Yeah,
like white people make up more. And you can't tell me that black people are committing crimes more than white people. Matter of fact, I know there isn't. I would love to attach the actual study to this in our notes so that people can go to it for themselves. But there's a study that actually shows, Elijah, that
mhm,
that cops are actually sent into black and poor neighborhoods so that they can police those areas more
more.
than they have to police white areas, right? And so the reality is that black people kind of sort of have a different view about Charlie Kirk than white people do. Okay, and so when I say we have to address the elephant in the room, we have to address the fact that for some individuals, our politics are different.
Mm,
Our politics are different. They're different because our race is different. Our race
mhm,
is different. You'll find in America, you'll find more white Republicans. You'll find more black Democrats. And it's not because of the fact that we agree with everything that the
yeah,
Democratic Party like postulates and upholds. No, we don't. We just understand how terrible, right? And no, let me be more docile. We understand how harmful certain Republican ideologies can be, as represented by our current president right now. And so we recognize that, hey, it may be better for us to side with what many individuals have called the lesser evil, if it means making sure that we do not get the right wing leaning ideologies, which are typically um, extremely hating, and not just hating towards black people, but it seems to be hating towards whatever does not fit their mold of American. Okay.
mhm,
And so I think that there's a tension within this conversation of religion and politics because of the fact that one, Christianity is already a very sensitive subject, and
Mhm.
now you're adding on an additional layer when you're talking about a second very sensitive subject in politics that's couched a lot of times in race relations. And so
Mhm.
that's what I would say. But what are your thoughts? What do you think causes the tension that is present amongst many believers today?
You have to choose. So, like, you said something that's, like, very interesting because I had this
Yeah,
same conversation with, a young adult, and he was, they were very right-leaning, right? And, y they basically said, "Hey, you know, we the the church that are vocal about politics tend to be either black or a minority church, right? Lesser white churches talk about politics from their pulpits, right? So he said, hey, the churches that do, right, they always are supporting left leaning politics, right? When they're the ones that are the most evil, right? And
the
then I had to
most evil.
take a step back, right? No, no, excuse me. He said most sinful. He said most sinful, not evil. The most
Sinful.
sinful. And
Wow.
then I looked back and I was like, why are we grading sinfulness when it
Mm,
comes to
these
politics,
parties.
right?
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, the Bible does not distinguish between the most evil and the most sinful, right, of sins, right? It's like, oh, always pick, the least sinful thing. It's like, no, the Bible says that we should always try to be perfect, like how God is, right? So the idea that that is the reason, because they're the least sinful, right? For me, kind of is that tension is where we're now in between picking two parties that are absolutely evil at their core, right? They like there is not one that we can say is perfect. And then we then are asked based on our values, right?
Yeah.
To then go and vote for two parties that have essentially all throughout their history done some pretty terrible things
Yeah.
and supported some terrible things across the board. And then there's a tension now between believers, and then our cultures are then put in the mix, right?
Mhm.
Our backgrounds are then put in the mix. And then now we're supposed to go out and then we're supposed to vote for these two parties that are increasingly becoming more and more separated, right? And then more bipolar. So the
Yeah.
tension really is between our spiritual values that I think most Christians can agree we're supposed to be acting out in love, right?
Yeah.
Being
Certainly.
empathetic towards people.
Yeah.
And then we see the distinction in how we vote as a church,
Yeah.
capital C church, right? Not just Adventism, but all the churches. There's a
Global.
pretty right big distinction on how we vote. It's split with the
Yeah.
same values, which is really, really interesting to see. So for me, man, that tells me two different things. One, we're allowing our politics and our political values to outweigh our spiritual values. So we're giving one more priority over the other, right? And then on the other side, right, there's people that are doing the opposite that are saying, "Hey, I'm trying my best to allow my spiritual values to dictate my political values." And what's crazy
Yeah.
is both sides will say that they're doing the other one, that they're doing
Yeah.
the one where their spiritual values are dictating their political values, bro. But my instinct, and this is just me speaking for me, myself, and I, my instinct
Please.
is that a lot of us are doing the opposite. A lot of us are
Mhm.
allowing our political values to dictate our spiritual values
Yeah.
because we don't want that opportunity to be challenged in them, man. So that's that tension
Yeah.
that I believe.
As you were talking, it made me really, as you brought up the situation that your young adult uh, had raised around, let's say, the left or Democrats. being more sinful. I think I think there are only two like real issues that um, Christians
Mhm.
have with the quote unquote left, and those two issues are um, the LGBTQ community and abortion.
Mhm.
You can't tell me that there are any other problems
There isn't really. Yeah.
that like that they have. Um, and so to say that that is you side more with let's say Republicans all because of your disapproval of abortion and your disapproval of the queer community. It's challenging. It's challenging. It's challenging because yeah, Republicans may feel strongly about that, but are you sure that Republicans care about the other important statutes that the Bible
Mhm.
upholds?
Mhm.
And so what I just wanted to do is make sure that we actually gave specific language as to what that tension is, as to
Mhm.
why a number of believers specifically say, "Oh man, you know, the left has feels this way and the left feels that way." You know, no, it's really around the topic of
The two.
the queer community and abortion.
Mhm.
So and so yeah, a lot of individuals in the church can't get with that. And so because they can't get with those two things, uh, they a lot of times throw the baby out with the bathwater, rather than saying, yeah, I don't agree with these two things that they hold up, but they do kind of make sense there, right? And I think you could probably say the same thing for the other side, for the
Mhm.
Republican side. You know, what's a very Republican ideal?
Small government, so like not spending a lot of money, overtaxing, right? Which I think most people would.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
I have a question. So are they saying all people not paying more taxes, or are they saying the richest people not paying more taxes? Because because based on the
There is a
big
distinction.
beautiful bill that our current president
It
put forward, it doesn't seem like
it's
all people are paying less taxes. It seems like a very specific portion of people are privileged to not be paying more taxes, and it's the rich.
it's really interesting because if you look at the political commentary, man, it's anti-Republican. Like it it goes against everything that the Republican Party has stood for.
Yeah,
What I mean by that, it's always against big government. So it's always against overspending. It's always against taxing the working class people more than they should, right? And it seems like again, if you're not paying attention to it,
yeah,
you'll get caught up in politic the two choice politics that most Christians are caught up in, right? And then kind of just let everything else fall by the wayside. We have to be very careful in the way that we're addressing it because even if you look at it the way that on the left looks at it too, right? Some of those that consider themselves Christian, right, look at the left and then think of them as the saving grace,
that's
right? It's like,
true.
oh, we just need more Democrats in Congress, right?
That's true.
And then you have to think to yourself, well, what are some issues on the left, right, that don't really align with what I believe in,
Yeah,
right? And then think of, hey, if I'm voting for these individuals, I have to be okay with everything that they stand for, right, might eventually become and come into law. So where is the majority of my values being met? And then
mm,
what does it mean also to then not even abstain, but then to throw your pushing and your backing behind maybe a third party candidate? right? Of like saying, hey, this is what morally feels best to do based on my spiritual beliefs. But to answer your question, I think a lot of what's happening right now, you would think maybe like 15, 20 years ago, I don't think a Republican Congress would have supported like raising the debt level so much, and all these other things. I don't think a die-hard Republican would
quote unquote, quote unquote,
support. Yeah,
quote unquote.
like yeah, like
Because from my understanding, every Republican president that we've had since uh since the 90s has raised the debt ceiling.
yeah, I mean every single president has,
Yes.
Democrat or Republican, right? So if your issue is physical spending, guess what? No one pulled through in their campaign promise.
Now I will say this. I don't know if like the Democrats said, "Hey, we're gonna pull this thing down." Like
I
I don't
thi
know if that was necessarily ever really like a promise. Like, hey, we're really gonna cut spending and we're gonna push this thing back down and things like that. I think it was more of like an ideal. Like it's possible.
it was
Hopefully, it's possible. But
ah,
you know,
I wouldn't quote me on it, but I think even when Biden was running, there was this like, hey, we have to bring down spending, and the question for everyone was, well, where are you going to bring down spending?
mm,
And then everyone had a different answer about where they were going to bring down spending. So on one side was saying this side, I'll do it here, and the other side was, well, it's here. So it just depended on where you were going to pull down spending. I think
sure, understood.
the yeah. So again, like not going inside the weeds, not every both parties don't stand for everything you and I believe in. So that's where that tension is then we have to pick, and then our culture comes in the background, man. So one of the things that I saw online, man, was a
Yeah,
lot of profiled Adventists, a lot of uh profile like high um what's the word? Celebrity status Adventists, right?
yeah.
That
Leaders,
are
leaders, our spiritual leaders.
our spiritual leaders are posting things when they've been silent, right, about the same issue but affecting different lives, right? Um,
A couple months ago,
mhm.
the I think it was the Democrat. Was it
The two
senator
senators from
Minnesota?
Minnesota, right? Yeah.
They were both murdered. I don't remember individuals calling that an assassination. I just gotta say, but like, but when that happened, did not hear not one thing from Doug Batch. Didn't hear anything from him, or from any other people.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of sort of like, huh. But go ahead.
No, man. So like for me, right, that's the consistency that I think a lot of us are looking for. I think most people think that the majority of Americans are on extremes when really we're most of us are somewhere left center and right center, right? We have more in common than we do apart. I think that individuals that that have the loudest voices are those that are on the extreme that are being picked up more. But I really do think, man, that the majority of us have more in common than we do apart. And
I'd like to
when
hope so.
we're like n- most of us aren't going, yeah.
I will say though,
Hmm.
a lot of MAGA are racist
Yes,
and
but they
xenophobic
don't claim they are though, man. You know.
because I think we all understand. I think we understand why they don't want to claim that, because it makes them look bad, and no one wants to be seen as the bad guy. No one wants to be seen as
Mhm,
the assailant.
mhm.
Like, they want to be seen as, if anything, a victim. Like, it's not my fault. Like, I don't have to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. And I think there have been a number of individuals from minority groups who have not necessarily had the best um, accountability rules. Sometimes they have blamed individuals, and in ways that were not the best or most consistent. And so at times, some people were unfair. Um, and I think some people just got tired of feeling like they were being quote unquote, blamed for certain things. And
Mhm.
so this is like their revolt. This is their
Mhm.
revolt,
Mhm.
But also, if you just don't like a certain group of people, you know, or have prejudice towards certain groups of people, it's okay to admit it. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to admit it. So that's it. That's it.
So man, like, so to like continue on in this conversation because it's a long one.
I want to ask you a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I and here's the reason why. Because I think, like, we've been doing a good job of like talking about kind of sort of like the just the practical side of this. But Elijah, I we're pastors, we're Christians, so
Mhm.
we really want to talk about like maybe like how does politics kind of sort of pop up throughout Scripture, because if we are saying that, let's say Christians should interact with politics in any way, I think Scripture should be able to have some type of backing to support that, some form of example. And so, I want to ask you, what does the Bible, how does the Bible lead us as Christians, and how we should interact and respond to certain political matters?
Man, I don't know where to start. Like, I don't know where to start. Like, my mind is like jumping into like prophecy and revelation, like my Adventist roots, tell me they are, right?
Yeah,
And then my
yeah,
Bible jumps into what Jesus says, right, about Caesar. And then my Bible and then my mind jumps into like the Old Testament where God literally sets up a government, right? And a
yeah,
form of politics.
yeah,
So like if you say the Bible is absent about politics, man, I was watching this clip and I can't believe I'm about to quote but Charlie Kirk himself, right?
yeah,
Like in a clip said that the Bible talks about politics all over from page to page. There is a lot that the Bible says about politics.
yeah,
And as you read through it, really the perfect system that the Bible talks about is a theocracy, right? Where God is the head, right? And because God would be the central sovereign ruler, right? We would all have the best possible lives because He is perfect. He's the one that made us. So if we're talking about, hey, like, what does the Bible talk about politics? It does say that He is the one that is in charge, and the way that Israel was formed is that He was the God and the ruler, and then all the prophets and all the judges functioned on behalf of Him
yeah,
until a monarchy was set. But even the monarchy wasn't picked through God. So there was a form of theocracy all through the Bible.
yeah,
But where it shifts is when Israel gets conquered, right? And then now they're not subject to other forms of powers.
yeah,
And in that, they didn't have to figure out how to now process through this new life change
yeah,
where they're underneath another government. And then the prophets then tell us, hey, really it's God that installs kings and rulers and princes and powers. He's the one that's ultimately in charge, but he's the one that uplifts them and tears them down. So there's
yeah,
a hope that we as Christians have is that if you are discouraged in this current political climate, right, find hope that God is still in control ultimately,
yeah.
right?
That's good.
So we can't live life thinking that God is not in control if you are a Christian. He's the one that lifts up people and brings them down. So if you are discontent, start praying and asking God for a shift if that's what you're looking for, right? And then my mind then, bro, jumps in to Revelation, right? Where God is giving John, right, an idea of what it would look like at the end, at at the end, right before the second coming of Christ, right? And in our interpretation in the Adventist Church, God has a hands-on approach in history. He's not hands off. He's fully in, and he has a vested interest in history turning out a certain way and in caring for his people as well. So if you do believe that these are the last days because the guy that you didn't vote for is in office, right? God is still in control. If you do like what's happening right now and you're scared in the next few years about what's going to be happening, you have the same hope as well. But where it gets different, man, where it gets different, and the Bible talks about it, is then the values for a government are then spread out across the Bible, right? So the values of what a government is supposed to be protecting is spread out throughout the Bible. And that's where we kind of get into a lot of disagreements when it comes to church and politics, is because we tend to cherry pick which values we want the government to uphold and which ones we don't want them to uphold. So that's, man, where I see the Bible talking about politics. It's literally all over. And if you really are a cherry picker of scripture, and a good one, right? You can end up twisting some verses into saying things that they don't really mean, when um there's this value of choice that God gave all the people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a choice to stay in community, and you
Yeah.
had a choice not to stay in community. And I think that's the part of the politics of the Bible that we don't like to talk about, is that
Yeah.
God gives everyone a choice to stay inside of his government or not,
Yeah.
and to stay within his kingdom or not, and the way that he does it or not. And if you don't, you have a choice of saying, no, this isn't for me, and then going and living life the way that you would like it to live, because that is a choice that you have. That's the part of the politics that the Bible talks about, man, that we don't highlight. But where do you see politics in the Bible, bro? I know I kind of gave like a macro. What's more of like a micro idea of thinking about politics in the Bible?
Yeah, and I want to start off by just like reading off this quick definition that I just found on Google, because
Hmm.
if a person wants to understand something, Google. So
Yeah.
if you go to Google, one of the very first things that you'll see, it's a brief, quick definition from Wikipedia, right? And I think you'll find similar things if you go to the dictionary or anything. It says this. It says politics, coming from the ancient Greek word politica. Um, is the set of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups or other forms of power relations among individuals, such as the distribution of status or resources. Okay. And so I remember, when I first got to Metro, Dr. Kinlock would always talk to me about, like, hey, politics really is just, relations between at least two people. Like that's what it is. And so everything is political, because everything is like everything, as long as there's more than one person involved, right? He identified that you're engaging in politics technically. And so to springboard off of that concept, right? God is a very political God. And our faith tradition as Adventists, we teach that this everything, the world that we're living in right now, of course, it started off because God created this perfect landscape. He had this perfect government in heaven that was created by Him, right? This holy government where everything was sinless. There was no sin in the world at all. There was no sin in heaven at all. And all the angels and whatever other inhabitants of heaven consisted of, they lived according to this government. However, one day Lucifer got a little froggy,
Mm.
and because he got froggy, he started to think like, man, I'm kind of cool. And I kind of sort of these angels, these other angels are worshiping God in this way. I kind of want some of that. And so what we find is that Lucifer began to rebel against the government
Hmm.
of God in heaven.
Yeah, that's what
And
it says.
like Revelation talks about the fact that the dragon, who we believe to be Lucifer, aka Satan,
Hmm.
um, he waged war against Michael. Uh, he waged war against Michael, and Michael's angels.
Yeah, man. Even Doug Batcher in the Amazing Facts series, bro, about this, talks about the government of God and Lucifer trying to upend it, bro. So it's
Hey, Michelle.
yeah, man. So like as I was saying, right, like what you said about Satan overthrowing the government of God, I like explicitly remember this video of Doug Batchelor talking about this episode in heaven and then using those exact words as well. So if you're saying, hey, where is that? It's in the Bible, but also if you're Adventist, right, it's in those amazing facts studies as well, bro. But continue.
Yeah, I mean, like literally in Isaiah chapter 14, using some symbolic language, right? This is a prophetic book, identified that this individual, um, essentially Satan wanted to rule over the other stars. And what we've determined is that stars are symbols for angels, right?
Hmm.
He wanted to rule over the stars of heaven. He wanted to ascend to the Most High to be like God and rule over the angels. And so Satan had a political agenda of his own. Lucifer had a political agenda of his own, yet he was trying to push up against God's agenda. Like God already had an agenda, and
Hmm.
God's agenda was love. That's what God's agenda was. Yet Lucifer came in and he was trying to push up against it, not for love's sake, but for self elevation,
Mm.
which is sin, which is sin. And so we see that literally, like God has a government,
Hmm.
right? And as believers, as Christians, our goal is to emulate Christ because Christ demonstrates his government.
Yeah.
Everything that God does, everything that the Father does, the Son does, the Holy Spirit does, aka the Trinity, they all demonstrate, they reflect their character, they reflect their government.
Hmm.
And so as believers who are living according to the holy government that God has set up, we first must understand what is the government of God. And then two, if we are coming in contact with systems
Hmm.
and powers that do not align with the government of God,
Hmm.
we have to speak against them.
Yeah.
We have to hold them to the fire. We have to rebuke those things because as believers, we uplift God's ways. And so we see this in so many different ways. Matter of fact, if you go to the book of Exodus, like God literally sent Moses to go to a political space, go to Egypt, go to a government that was
Hmm.
enslaving God's people. And he said, Moses, I want to work through you as my vessel so that my people can be freed, can be liberated. One, because they're my people, and two, I didn't create slavery. I
Mm.
didn't create slavery. And so Moses was engaged in a political battle between God and
Hmm.
who's going to win? Is God going to win? Or is Pharaoh, who is a representative of the sun god Ra,
Mm.
is he going to win?
Yeah.
And so if you really allow yourself to, you can see politics really play out in several different instances in the Bible. And even when last one, even when the Israelites or the Hebrews, as they were referred to at the time, even when they were liberated from Egypt, right? They were called the Hebrews. And what God had to do was God had to come up with a system, a new system of government for them, because they had been under Egyptian rule for the past how many years? Over 400 years.
400. Yeah.
Like they were in Egypt for 400 years. They got accustomed to Egyptian ways for 400 years. Like they got used to that government. And so God had to reintroduce them to his government, his ways. And so he took them through a political shift where Pharaoh was no longer the one in charge, but God was the one in charge,
Mm.
and his representative was Moses.
Hmm.
And so we see that individuals engage in politics. Matter of fact, in the book of Numbers, we see consistently that God gives them policy shifts
Hmm.
or amendments because various things were happening in their camps and they had to update the policies. They had to
Hmm.
update the amendments. These are the rights that you have: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If this happens to you, this should be the result. If that happens to you, this should be the result. This is politics, Elijah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
People engaged in politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for individuals to now, right, attempt to disconnect us from one of our prophetic responsibilities.
Mm.
And I really do believe that it's a prophetic responsibility. It means that you're trying to disconnect us from a call that God has placed on his last day church.
It indefinitely, bro. Indefinitely, indefinitely. And even if you look at the start, man, of our own denomination being Adventists, right? Our pioneers were abolitionists, right? Like they were in politics, they were involved because they had the belief that the government, although established by God, would ultimately put in laws, right, that would then persecute people. So they did not have this idea that the government would come in to save and to uphold Christian values the way that mistakenly some of us have put all of our chips into one side of politics and saying this is going to be the saving grace of my faith, when really if you look all throughout Christian history, Christians who have been vocal in representing God in government have been persecuted. So it's to me, bro, studying the Bible and even studying Christian history, it's weird to see Christians putting so much faith in government. Like it is something that I don't think has happened in Christian history, and every time it has happened, bad things have occurred, right? Where the church backs the government, right? And then because church and state come together, if you look through history, when those two elements come together, bad things usually tend to happen in the years that follow. And um I always get, like you said, man, a little hesitant when we put our faith in things outside of God. And that's where the tension for individual believers comes in. And the church does not engage in those political issues. It does a disservice to our heritage as a denomination, and even as a religious, as a world religion as well, because a lot of what we believe in, right, in prophecy, but also how God instituted things, comes out of exactly like you said, this level of politics that's kind of in vo woven woven intertwined in our faith. It's there. It's there.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly, and I want to say this, Christians, right? Christians. I really want to clarify a couple of things. Christians are typically the ones um, saying that now, um, and Christians are like the world. Christianity is a well respected uh, and acknowledged religion at this
Mhm.
point, right? Um, 1,000 years ago, I don't think that was. I don't. Christianity wasn't like the dominant religion in the world just yet,
Uh,
right? In the Eastern Hemisphere,
yeah.
in Europe, Catholicism was, of course, you
Mhm.
know, like doing well, right? Because
Mhm.
Catholicism helped rebuild Europe,
Yeah.
but you know,
The rest of the world.
worldwide,
Mhm.
Christianity wasn't a thing. Christianity is now a thing, like
Mhm.
where, and not just Christian Protestant Christianity, where like
Protestant.
Christ
Yeah.
is like we're not talking about like a pope and a papal authority. No, we're talking about like Christ being the front and center. Um, this has never been the case for the Church of God like this.
Mhm.
And I don't think the Church of God quite understands what we actually have.
Good point.
Um, and I've never seen a religious group so paranoid,
Mm.
like for instance, there have been individuals who said that, hey, this assassination of Charlie Kirk, this isn't about race. This isn't about politics. This is an attack on the church. They killed him because he was a Christian. And I said, who, who,
Who's they?
who? Like the Christian church is the most powerful church in the world right now. Like, like it's so powerful that whoever the president of the United States is has to be Christian, or at least has to be friends with Christians.
Hmm.
Like that's how powerful Christianity is. Like you're not going to see a Muslim president. If you see a Muslim president, that's different. Like America will cry. Like meteors will fall from the sky that day, and it's because Christianity has taken such a powerful place in the world. And so it's interesting. It's interesting that individuals believe that Christianity is really under attack.
Mm.
Like, who is it under attack by? Atheists? Like,
That's the only other group that I would think.
and so I think that it's crucial because you didn't make the point that whenever church and state come together, um, like it hasn't necessarily been good, right?
Hmm.
And I think it hasn't necessarily been good because whatever church has come together with state, whatever political movement at the time, it's always been a reflection of a pagan religion.
Hmm.
Like it's never been God,
Hmm.
like who was the center. And so this is why the golden statue, or the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had in
Mm.
his dream, where the first kingdom, Babylon, gets destroyed. Then the next empire, I believe Medo Persia, that got destroyed. And all the subsequent empires got destroyed because yes, all of them had amazing feats at the time, yet they did not have the right government because they didn't
Mm.
have the right God. They didn't have the right God.
Mm.
But that's what makes God's government, his empire, so unique, because God allows, this is in the book of Daniel. God is kind of sort of he's been marching humanity through all these various empires,
Hmm.
right? And all of them have fallen. And to your point, even the American empire at a certain point will fall, because that, like, everything must come to an end if God is going to take command, and bring an end to this earth, right?
Hmm.
And so, to a certain extent, what this lets us know is that the Christian church, uh, it must be veering away from God's true mission and God's true intention of the church if it is going to one day fail. Because we understand that this empire, the American empire, it's going to fail. And it seems like right now, Christianity is the prevailing religion of this empire. And so, what this lets you know is that somehow, some way, the reason why this religion is somehow, some way going to be a part of this country's fall, this empire's fall, is because of the fact that the individuals who are practicing this religion, right, have forgotten the purpose of the religion, forgotten the purpose of what God told us to
Mm.
do. And you'll have several political leaders, like you have right now, just using the religion for
Mm.
their own agendas.
Hmm.
And believers can't tell the difference.
Mm.
Parishioners, lay members can't tell the difference, which
Yeah.
is why you have so many individuals praising Trump, why you got so many individuals praising Charlie Kirk, because they cannot see that they have idolized these individuals and have somehow, some way replaced God
Yeah.
with. So
M- Man, that's so real. That's so real. Uh, let's bring this conversation. This is like part two, right? There will probably be a part three, but what's it's bro, there's this, like, the most famous Christian rapper or artist right now. I'm
Come on,
forgetting his
Lecrae.
name. Huh?
Lecrae?
Nah. It's
Andy
this white
Mineo?
guy. It's a white guy.
Andy Mineo? Oh well, I don't know if you know
Sure. I
that.
don't know his name.
Okay.
Um,
Toby
shows you
Mac?
how much I listen to Christian music.
Is
I
Toby
don't.
Mac a rapper? No, I don't
It's
think so.
not Toby Mac. He's young. He's young. He's like Gen Z. And he posts a video. It popped up on my feed on Instagram, and
Mm.
he was reacting to a video that he posted about Charlie Kirk dying, right? And then he said, "Hey, please pray for his family." And then he called people to accept Christ, right? And he then he like did a stitch with his own video, and then he stitched in that his followers dropped. So after that video, right, his followers dropped. And
Okay.
then he made a video about that saying, "Hey, I would rather not have you guys follow me at all." Right? And he misunderstood why people unfollowed him, right?
Yeah.
He spent the entire time talking about, well, if you don't believe in Jesus, then I don't want you following me, because He is my Lord and my Savior. And if you are still following me or thinking about unfollowing me, like Jesus is the Lord, and I need you to believe Him, and da 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 da, and He's my Savior, and like he's talking about Jesus, right? And I'm listening to it, I'm like, bro, you missed the reason why people are unfollowing you.
That's it. That's it.
Like
Nothing,
people.
nothing with Jesus.
Like people aren't unfollowing you because they don't believe in Jesus. They believe in Jesus. That's why they followed you in the first place. You have good music, right? And they unfollowed you because you're idolizing someone that they don't believe represents Christ. And that's okay. It like your common denominator in the church is Jesus. It is not
Right.
a individual, it's not a pastor,
Yes.
it's not an influencer, it's not a
Yes.
president. It's none of that. It's Jesus. And then he completely, bro, misunderstood where
Yep.
all these people followed him. And what's interesting is that it's not just him. It's really everyone that's posted about this specific instance has
Bro,
has all said people just don't love Jesus anymore. Why don't they love Jesus anymore?
I, like I said, I've never seen a Christian church that is more paranoid and delusional. Like they're I don't know why they're thinking, especially the white Christian church. They think that this is about the church. They think this is about Christianity.
Yeah,
I'm confused.
me too.
Like when that individual said that, like we hate the church. Like they are saying we think he's a terrible man.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. It has not like I the the level of not understanding each other has just gotten to this point, bro, where I'm just like, what is going on? We
you
all
want
believe.
you
Go
want to
ahead,
know
go
the
ahead.
worst part about this, bro? The worst part about this is that like the church wasn't even involved. Like the
At
church kind
all.
of like the church invited themselves into this, bro. Like this initially was a left versus right thing, and then church people came up and was like, "Listen, hear me out.
Yeah.
This is not about what people think it's about. This is actually about the church." And it's just like, how, 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 how is that what you chose to come up with in
Yeah.
this time? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, delusional, delusional. But okay. But obviously, like we we talked a lot today. We got to come to an end. We got to bring it to an end. So obviously, we believe that there's a political responsibility that every believer has. Every believer
Mhm,
has.
mhm.
We hope that you will agree with some of our views, and I don't think we necessarily even got into specifically what our those principles and values that we have are, but we do at least say, hey, if you're a believer, like you should be involved in politics. You should exercise your right
Yes.
to vote. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God. Caesar allows you to vote. Okay, so if
Mhm.
Caesar allows you to vote,
Go vote.
you should vote. I'm pretty sure that some of us have churches where they allow us to vote on leaders in a church, and so if you vote on leaders in the church, That's you rendering unto God what is God's. So render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. Vote for the state that you live in, the country that you live in, and also vote for the church that you live in. Okay, because without the country, 9 times out of 10, most of y'all would not have churches. Matter of fact,
Mm,
if we really being honest, like many of y'all would not still be going to church if it was inconvenient for y'all. So
mm.
I just want to say that. Just want to say that. But anyway, that's all I got. Elijah, you got anything for the people of God today before we leave?
Man, this the same person posted their Sunday routine. And church was maybe an hour about of what they did. Um,
Ah, dang.
and I said, this is different. This is different. God requires everything of who we are, including our politics. It
Yeah,
has to be shaped, formed, and molded by God. And it's okay if you're being challenged in
yeah,
that, because that's what God does. He challenges you, he refines you and me, and
yes,
then by the end of it, by his grace, we become more like him and not more like our political ideology, which is
that's
faulted
it.
and steeped in sin. So man, I hope people found hope at the end of this, because there are individuals on both sides, man, that are going through it right now. Because if you believed that the church has anything to do with this and they're in a battle right now, then you are anxiety filled, right? And if
Yeah,
you're like, oh my goodness, there is political violence, you're also anxiety filled. And then if you're just oh my gosh, I lost a hero, you're also anxiety filled. And then
yeah.
if you're thinking about mass uh, um, uh, revenge happening, right, because of this, you're also anxiety filled,
Whoa,
right?
whoa.
The one solution that the church always preaches, the solution to sin, right, is not the president, left or right, is not Congress, it's Jesus. And with that as our hope, man, I feel better. I feel better. Obviously, like you said, in this conversation in context, we never celebrate the death of anyone, right? Like that is a byproduct of sin. Celebrating the death of any
Yeah.
child of God, that is not godly at all, right?
We do not celebrate anyone's downfall, even Joe Burrow.
Bro.
Not at all. You saw the
Man,
turf. You saw the turf
I the
toe.
turf toe. Yup,
Yeah, three,
yup.
three. He'll be out for 12 to 14 weeks.
3 months, bro.
But,
I was
but we don't
excited.
celebrate that. We don't celebrate that at all. At
We
all.
wish his healing into next season. We wish his healing. Take as much
Tomorrow,
time. Take as much time as you need to heal Joe Burrow, and we'll see you in
get married.
2027.
Get married. You know.
All that money, spend it on somebody. We love everyone. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Two Young Pastors podcast, where spirituality and lifestyle come together in this thing we call the Christian walk. Please type in the chat and let us know what you think, and what you agree with and what you didn't. Because guess what? We're still gonna like you anyway. We'll see you, and we'll catch you guys on the next one on a Tuesday episode. See you guys later.